Addicts. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com, and today we're talking about the gang's apparel. Before we begin, I will have everyone introduce themselves, and Tori, will start with you.
Hi, my name is Tori, and you may know me as Tori Scooby Fan.
Wendy.
Hi guys, I'm Wendy BRYDGE. I'm a commission artist and I've been collecting Scooby for over 30 years.
And Leah.
I'm Leah, also known as My Scooby Space on Instagram, and I am a fellow Scooby-Doo collector like everyone else here.
So we're going to talk about the gang's clothes, and to me, their clothing is iconic. I mean, when I picture the gang in their outfits. They have their own style. It's hard to not think of them in the clothes, like the clothes on my shirt. That's exactly how I picture them when I picture the gang. So what are your thoughts on the clothes that they wear? Wendy?
Yeah, what I love the most about the gang's look is that even though, yes, we can look at it and we get that vintage retro 60s, 70s vibe, it's not just that. I feel like you could easily see somebody wearing pretty much what the gang is wearing in Where Are You? In some way, shape, or form today. You know, I guess certain things are maybe not as trendy, like Fred's ascot, but plenty of women wear scarves. Daphne wears a scarf. What's more classic than either a sweater and a skirt for a lady or a dress like Daphne with some tights? Plenty of people still dress like Shaggy with just an oversized t-shirt and some slacks, you know? So I think that was a really great, I don't know if it was incidental and just like kismet, it was perfect, but that was, I think, one of the things that helped give Scooby the longevity that it's had, and that is they can keep their iconic outfits, but it doesn't seem dated the way certain other clothing looks from that time period can look. I mean, I feel like even what I'm wearing is very dated compared to what the gang wears, you know, even though I was trying to do something like inspired by it, mine is very dated, but theirs, it just isn't. I don't know. I feel like it just works in any time period. I don't know, maybe you guys will disagree, but I actually feel like thinking specifically of, oh goodness, what's new Scooby-Doo? I actually think that the outfits in that are more dated or are more obvious to a certain time period than what the original outfits are. I don't know if that's just me, but I kind of feel like it dates them a little bit. But original outfits, whoever designed them, like, guys, great job. I think that it's interesting to look at, there's I guess you would just call it like an original concept art drawing of the gang when the show, I guess, they were still thinking of calling it Who's Scared? And it's basically the exact same way that we know the gang, with just like 3 minor differences. Freddie's hair is brown instead of blonde. Velma's not wearing any glasses, and she's wearing like a big medallion pendant. And if you compare that pose with those outfits with what we ended up with, and literally those 3 things are the only differences, I actually feel that original style somehow looks more dated and obvious to the late 60s, early 70s, especially that big medallion that Velma wears. And I love how just such simple changes really did take the gang from looking dated and kind of plain and like all the other things that were going on at that time, and like just made them their own thing. they really just Scooby Gang. We see those colors put together, not even like on something. We just see purple, orange, green, brown, blue. Immediately we think Scooby Gang. And that's a pretty cool thing to have in an aesthetic, to just have even the colors be so iconic that that's what you think of. So yeah, timeless. The gang is timeless. Their outfits are really cool and hip and groovy no matter what time period you're in.
Tori, what are your thoughts on the gang's outfits?
Yeah, I mean, kind of building off of Wendy, because I completely agree with everything she said. I do think them being almost like so simple in the design, there's not patterns, there's nothing big and flashy. I think that really helped keep it timeless. I mean, it's really just the colors. And even on the design, like, of course, there's the debate, is Fred wearing a jumpsuit or is it really pants? And the ascot, like, they're not so flashy that it dates them. Like, it really does translate well throughout the series. And I would agree, building on kind of how they did What's New, I liked it. I do like when they kind of change the outfits up a little bit, but I would even say too, on like Witch's Ghost, Zombie Island, when they kind of modernize that, I feel that's super dated too. Like, you can look at that and you instantly think like 90s, 2000s, whereas their original design really does translate over time. And it's just, I think the colors are so impactful, and I think it really does match all their personalities well. You know, purple's the color of royalty. We always assume Daphne is the fashionista. In later iterations, she comes from wealth, so that makes sense for the color choices. Like, it's just very interesting kind of how the outfits were put together and just how long they have lasted. It really is a testament to just great animation and great design.
Leah, what are your thoughts on the gang's outfits?
So I've always loved all of their outfits. Daphne's has always been my favorite. Like, if I could just dress like her, just like, and if that look could just look as flawless in real life, that would be great. I think that's one thing about her outfit, is it's always so put together. You know, her tights are never scuffed, and it matches her personality, like you guys were saying with the color. You know, even more so, you know, the fact that it always looks put together, very clean cut, goes along with how, you know, if her hair is slightly out of place, she like flips out. I will definitely say I think the Where Are You era outfits are my favorite, but that's my favorite series, so no surprises there. I think the fact that they chose like distinct colors for each member of the gang too helps, because you think of each character, you see a color and you think of that character, and they pick very bright, bold colors. I think to the point where if you were to see those colors like together in everyday life, you know, you see that olive green, you're going to think of Shaggy, because it's a very distinct shade of green. You know, it's not one you just see every day. Same with, you know, the deep purple, the bright orange. That's not something people wear all that often, but, you know, Velma pulls it off. The other thing too is the functionality of the outfits. You know, y'all mentioned Daphne's scarf, Fred's ascot. And I'm sure you guys all know this, but some people listening may not. The reason they did that at the time was because of cell animation, and so that they could move the characters' heads and you wouldn't see the drawing marks underneath. So that's why, you know, Scooby has a collar, Daphne has a scarf. If you look at Hanna-Barbera characters from that era, they've all got some sort of neck piece to hide any like movement or drawing lines. It's very interesting art style wise. And Wendy, I know you'd mentioned that drawing when it was like early concept art. If I remember correctly, I think that's one of the pieces that was on display in Indianapolis at the Children's Museum. So it was super cool to see that in person. I was like, man, I wish I could have that on my wall at home. But yeah, no, to sum it up, I love their outfits. Like y'all said, classic, timeless. If I could dress like them in everyday life, I would. Especially now.
We can't forget their winter outfits. I mean, they're, even for the few amount of times that they've worn winter outfits, like, people love them. They're just as iconic as their regular outfits. And they've had several different winter outfits. There was the Where Are You version. There was a What's New version. I think Guess Who, Be Cool, Pup. They've had so many different winter outfits. What are your thoughts on that, Tori?
I love the image that I always think of is from Where Are You with Daphne and the hat. Like it's just an iconic fashion statement. But I do like when they kind of like play into the elements because of course when it's cold outside, she's not going to be in a little tiny dress. So I do like that it adds that kind of attention to detail that I think us fans really appreciate.
Leah, what are your thoughts on their winter outfits?
I would say I wouldn't get a chance to wear them because I live in Texas and it's super hot here all the time. We get like 2 days of winter, but their outfits are definitely super cute. I would say the winter outfits are probably a little more dated. Kind of like the sleepwear outfits. That's another one. I don't know if you're going to talk about that or not, but sometimes we see those in the same episodes, and the sleep outfits are definitely dated. But the winter outfits are super cute. I like that they keep the same color palette, so you're still associating with the same character. Like, I feel like it'd be really weird to see Shaggy. Well, I guess I can't use Shaggy as an example because we do see him in other colors in other series. But like it would be weird to see Fred wearing green like Shaggy's color. You know what I mean? Like they have their color palettes for the most part. Shaggy kind of being the exception in that 80s era, but I like that they keep the same color palette, but they like, okay, here's a new look, which I mean makes sense. We all have favorite colors and we tend to buy clothes in our favorite colors, so it makes sense that our favorite characters would too.
Wendy, what are your thoughts on their winter outfits?
Well, I live in a cold climate, so my favorite outfits in Scooby-Doo are the winter ones. And Daphne has so many great winter outfits because there are multiple versions in each series. I actually, because I guess I have nothing better to do sometimes, one day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to write a blog post and we're going to look at every single Daphne winter outfit that there is. And like, they're amazing. I want all of that in my closet right now. I would live for that. I would actually, okay, maybe not, but maybe it's hot right now, so I am feeling this way. I would maybe put up with it being cold like all year long if I had all of Daphne's winter outfits to like choose from. Okay. In another 3 months, I'm going to eat those words, guaranteed. I will be complaining that it's cold, but for right now, that is how I feel. Like Leah was saying, I love that they keep the consistency with the colors. So even if somebody gets a winter outfit or a sleep outfit or whatever, it's still totally color coordinated to that character, which I think there's actually an interesting psychological thing about that, where in Canada, like just a quick example, in Canada, all of our paper money, each denomination is like a different color. Like we literally have Monopoly money is what it's like. You know, hundreds are brown, 50s are red, 20s are green, you know, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't until I went to the States, when I was old enough to be handling money, I had been before, but the first time that I went where I was old enough to actually be dishing out the cash, you really don't realize how much you rely on color visual cues when you're doing something. Because I am still not convinced that I didn't cough over $100 bill when I meant to give a 1. I still, 20 years later, it keeps me up at night sometimes, but like all the bills are the same color and I'm not used to that. My friend introduced me to some crackers and I sent her a picture the other day and she's like, oh, is that a different kind? I'm like, no, they just redesigned the box and they changed the color. And she's like, oh, I really would have screwed up at the store, because she's like, I buy by color. And it just made me think of how many things, if we really think about it, like, are we actually looking at something or are we just making like an immediate color association to that thing? And that's a really important thing to realize. And if you're doing any kind of design work, if you're making clothing or you're making a cartoon, especially, I mean, remember, Scooby is primarily for children of some young age, and you want to give them that easy, quick visual association, both so that they can enjoy the cartoon better, and when you're in the store and you've got merch on the shelves, they're going to know, you know, we see those colors in the store, there's a good chance we're all going to run over there and be like, is it Scooby or is this just a coincidence, you know? And so yeah, but yeah, winter outfits, 10 out of 10, all across the board. Love them. Love them.
So let's talk about their colors. I mean, for me, if I see something orange, I instantly think of Velma, or I see something purple and I always think of Daphne. It's just, I've associated the colors just like you guys have, and it's hard to not associate a gang member with one of those colors. Although I do often wonder why Fred's color is blue and not white,
Right.
because his pants are blue, but his shirt is white. So why wouldn't it have been white? It's an interesting question. Tori did some research on what the colors actually mean. So we're going to have her tell us that.
Okay, I'm going to pull it up. So again, this is probably pseudoscience, not 100% scientific, for all my Velma fans out there. So when we were looking at, we can start with actually white. So of course we know brides wear white to symbolize innocence and purity. Doctors and nurses also wear white to emphasize cleanliness. And it says white should be worn by people who like to be honest, transparent, and receptive to new ideas. And when dealing with something important or acting quickly, we should avoid white. So I thought that was kind of funny because Fred's the leader and he's always dealing with something important, but they tell him not to wear white. For orange, it's for people who are working, creative, and full of energy. It also says orange should be worn by those who suffer from depression and those people who should enter more joy and lightness into their own lives. I thought that was kind of interesting because I think kind of in the newer iterations, they make Velma a little more whiny, I guess is how I would say it. And I hate that they've done that to her. They kind of make her this Debbie Downer, which doesn't reflect on that orange, which is so bright and creative and powerful. But that's our orange. So violet, this was the closest I could get to kind of Daphne, represents luxury, wealth, sophistication, the color of royalty. I think that fits perfectly with Daphne. It said should be worn by people who want peace, pure love, and who meditate to bring peace and tranquility. So I thought that was interesting. Blue is the most popular color. It is supposed to be causing the body to cool. And it's recommended for job interviews because it symbolizes loyalty. So I could see Fred being very loyal. So that was interesting. Green, I think this does fit well with Shaggy. So green symbolizes nature. It is soothing and refreshing. And I didn't know that in the Middle Ages, brides wore green because it symbolized fertility. That will not apply to Shaggy. But it said green should be worn by hyperactive people and those who have a reduced ability of thinking and judging. So kind of bad, but I think it does apply a little bit. And then brown, which I guess you could kind of argue sometimes our characters were brown. Brown is the color of the earth. It means strength and reliability. So just kind of fun, who knows if it's accurate or not. I do think probably the best fitting is the purple with Daphne. I think that is just spot on. But I really can't imagine our characters in different colors. I think the colors really do complement the character's personality so well. And I think when we see like Shaggy in the red shirt is so jarring to me. Like I don't like the red shirt era. Like it's just, that's not my Shaggy. So I really do think the colors like are very impactful to how we perceive the characters and their personalities specifically.
So I also looked up the meaning of the colors, and the only thing that I wanted to mention besides what Tori said was that brown means wholesomeness. And I just felt like, I mean, we say it all the time that Scooby-Doo is wholesome. And I thought that was just very fitting for Scooby. Leah, what are your thoughts on the colors?
I think it's all very interesting. When you were talking about especially Shaggy and Fred's, what I was thinking about is that with Fred, they were going for a very, clean cut image. So when you said, doctors and nurses wear white to represent cleanliness, that makes sense. Fred's very clean cut, put together, versus Shaggy, he's more of that beatnik, which would have been very popular in the 60s. And he's wearing green, brown, very earthy, natural colors, which makes sense for the beatnik style. So those two in particular, I was like, ooh, I hadn't really thought about it like that, but even the colors support those images. Daphne, I agree that the wealth for her makes total sense, very wealthy person, but also just, luxury, outside of wealth. She just always looks very nice, very fashionable. Velma, I think, is very interesting about the more that depressed people should wear, because like you said, it's a bright color, so that's a little odd, but still interesting. I also think, like what she said earlier, that red shirt Shaggy is not our Shaggy. Like, I completely agree with that. Like, it's not as recognizable. And just like an example of that, several years ago, me and my husband and my family, we did a Scooby-Doo cosplay, and my husband was Shaggy, and we bought the clothes like at Ross. So it was just a normal pair of reddish brown pants and then a green shirt that was that color. And I can tell you that, like, he would wear those sometimes, like even after the cosplay, basically when he ran out of laundry and he had nothing else to wear. And I would know, because they would be like, oh, you're wearing those two together. You never wear those together. And it was instantly, you look at it, you think of Shaggy. And it, it doesn't hurt that my husband, if his hair grows out a bit, he has that same color hair. But I can tell you, if he was wearing a pair of blue jeans and a red shirt, nobody would think of Shaggy. I mean, maybe like somebody who really knows Scooby-Doo like us, but your average viewer is not going to go, oh, he looks like Shaggy in that outfit. So I think it just goes to show you how much the classic colors are iconic.
It's funny because my husband and I also dressed like Scooby and Shaggy, and he got the brown pants and the green shirt, and he has worn them together, just not, just for every day. And I'm just like calling him Shaggy all day, but he has red shirts and he wears jeans usually, and I never associate that with Shaggy ever. So yeah. Wendy, what are your thoughts on the colors?
Yes, colors having meanings goes back thousands of years, and I feel like it's the kind of thing where we're probably not even aware of how much we know to associate certain colors with certain characteristics or traits. And I really think that that's probably what was going on with the Scooby Gang. There is, of course, a possibility that maybe the designers sat down and were like, had an actual conversation about color theory and were like, what should we do? I think it's probably more likely that in their mind, they already had these associations and they weren't consciously thinking about them, but it just came out like that. And it's like just another testament to how wonderful Scooby is, that like everything just like meshed perfectly, because the character of each of the characters matches the colors that they got put with, like, beautifully. Nikki, to touch on your question at the beginning, I think maybe Fred gets the blue because his collar is also blue. So there's like two pieces of blue, even though you could argue the white is like the bigger piece, but maybe that's why, because there were two pieces that were blue. But let's not forget too, blue also the symbol of, or the color of peace, which if we look at Fred's leadership style, he's not aggressive at all. If you put Fred in like a red shirt or something, but he acted the way that white and blue shirt Fred does, like it would be jarring. I feel like Freddie approaches everything like cool, calm, and collected, and like the goal is peace for him. I feel like for all of them, but specifically him as the leader. And the only other thing that I will add to this is Scooby's collar, blue and yellow, the peace, and a lot of people will say, oh, yellow, happiness and all that, but historically yellow is the color of cowardice, which kind of plays in perfectly for Scooby. Like, we love him, but he's a scaredy dog, so I thought that was interesting that, I do think a lot of it is just they were like, let's make it visually appealing, but it just all fell into place so perfectly because Scooby's magic. Okay, I think we can all agree with that. They made something, like they broke the mold with Scooby-Doo. They will never be able to replicate it. Scooby is his own thing, and this is just one of the many, many reasons why it's so amazing. Like, whether it was deliberate or it just was incidental, it works, and it's perfect the way it is.
Do you think that color theory existed in the late 60s? Like, were people really thinking about what colors mean? Or do you think it was just kind of like, oh, they're bright colors, so let's go with those? It's for kids, so you want to make the colors stand out. You want them to be fun and bright and exciting. So I don't know. I wonder too if they actually, like, if it was a psychological thing that they chose the colors, or just they were bright and kids would like them.
Right.
We can't forget the mystery machine too. The colors of the mystery machine work so well together. And, you know, like you said, Wendy, if I see something that is like a turquoise and just any type of Scooby color like that, I'm instantly like, oh, I wonder if that's Scooby-Doo. Does that have Scooby on it? Like, I have to go check those out.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on the colors of the mystery machine, Leah?
Well, as you can see, the blue on my wall back here, that was as close as I could find to a mystery machine blue that wouldn't be like so bright on a wall that would like take away from it. And there's definitely lots of like the green and the orange accents in the room too. Not on the wall, but just in the items that I have. So I love the colors of the mystery machine. I've always told my husband and pretty much everybody that I would love to drive a mystery machine someday. That's like one of my goals. Like, I will be that mom that pulls up to pick up her kid in a mystery machine, and they'll probably be like, Mom, to send dad to pick us up next time. Like, you're embarrassing me. But that would just be, you know, if I had the extra money and I could just spend it on something that crazy, that would be one of my like goals for my collection. So I definitely love those colors. Like you said, they're bright, they're fun, they definitely catch your attention. Pattern on the mystery machine is definitely more dated because you've got those retro flowers, but I think that works well because, you know, the mystery machine is a good representation of, you know, the times, you know, just like any vehicle. Most vehicles look dated, even with just a solid paint job, because of, you know, the build, the make, the model. So I think it makes more sense that the gang would have less dated colors and outfits, whereas, you know, the mystery machine's a little more dated. I think it still works. And of course, you can't forget the very rare pink mystery machine that you see in like some of the early 70s merchandise and comics. I still don't know what was up with that. Like, it's never pink anywhere else. So I always wonder who came up with that. Like, was it somebody hadn't seen the show, or they're just like, oh, we ran out of teal, let's do pink? I don't know. It makes me wonder.
It is weird. And it's always been weird for me to see it like that. And I look at it and I'm just like, it's not really the mystery machine. But
right. It's like when Freddie first bought the van before he gave it a paint job, and he's like, no, I can't be seen driving. I'm trying to picture Freddie driving a pink van. I think he just wouldn't go for it. I mean, what's a gift from Daphne's dad? I think I remember that. I don't remember what iteration said that, but it would make sense that she would get it in pink, and then Freddie would change the color. I just thought of that.
Tori, what are your thoughts on the colors of the mystery machine?
I mean, I think it's very much a product of its time, because I think of like those painted vans from like the 60s and 70s with like the wizard and dragon. Like, that's what my mind goes to. So of course they have this like really cool groovy van with the flowers, and that's what I think of as like the iconic mystery machine. But almost like their outfits, we've seen the mystery machine go through so many different iterations. They've tried to update it where it's just blue, and you know, we've seen them kind of change it over time, but I prefer the classic with the flowers. I did make a car sticker for my car where it's the mystery machine, kind of like the orange flower and the blue background, and it says, "What would Scooby do?" And I can't tell you how many times people come up to my car and they take a picture with it and they're like, "Oh, the mystery machine." Like, everyone just knows that iconic flower. Yeah. I mean, behind me, like, that's just the mystery machine to me. And I think that's kind of like almost the most like of its time. Like, that's the most dated aspect almost, is the mystery machine. But even so, it still just translates, and we see people painting their cars today to be like the mystery machine. I mean, it is, and it's not creepy either. Like, if I saw the 60s van with the wizard driving around, I'd be like, oh, okay. But if I see the Mystery Machine, I'm like, woo, like honking my horn, like it's awesome. So it is kind of funny how that dated aspect we have kept timeless just through our fandom alone.
Yeah, I also don't like when they change the Mystery Machine, and they always end up changing it back in the next series. So they do need to stick with the iconic look of the Mystery Machine, because that is just perfect for the gang. Wendy, what are your thoughts on the colors of the Mystery Machine?
Yeah, I agree. The Mystery Machine is probably the most like dated piece of Scooby. But that also, I think, lends to the charm of Scooby and reminds us that it is something that has been around for that long. Nikki, it's been so long. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when Bob Singer was on, he designed the design for the Mystery Machine, didn't he? And he talked a little bit about that, right? I'm not misremembering that. I hope not. It wasn't somebody else. So yeah, go watch the Bob Singer panel. Shameless plug for the Scooby panel. But yeah, like let's think of the time period. 1969, they were probably working on it a few years earlier. It was a time where like the hippy dippy trippy stuff was going on. And as someone that had parents that grew up in that era that were very much not the hippie dippy trippy type people, when I look at Scooby and I think of it in terms of its time period, and I see elements like the flowers on the Mystery Machine, which are iconic 1960s hippie kind of thing. And yet, even though, yes, we've talked about this 100 times, people like to, oh, Shaggy Stoner, but we have put that to bed, okay? That is not a thing. We've put that to bed. So, because we know that that wasn't a thing for a fact by the people that worked on it, it's kind of like, well, why then would you use that iconic symbolism on the van? And I kind of wonder if this was kind of a conscious thing in Hanna-Barbera at the time where, you know, we remember that time period and a lot of people try to romanticize it, but the reality is that a lot of negative stuff came out of like the free love idea where everybody's just doing drugs. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people died, is my point. A lot of people died from that lifestyle that got glorified. And I feel like not enough people know that. And I wonder if Hanna-Barbera, in their quest to make something wholesome and something that the children could learn from, made the association with the time period, but then really worked hard to make the Scooby Gang not that negative stereotype from the time. You know what I mean? Because there were plenty of people at the time that didn't like that movement and that were pushing to like, no, you kind of do need to get a job and bathe once in a while. And you know what I mean? Like, it's not good to maybe have sex with like 12 different partners a night. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not good to get so stoned that like you wake up in the next town and you don't know how you got there, you know? So I look at the Mystery Machine and I'm like, maybe that was just like their little nod of like, see, you can stand for peace, the blue, nature, grounded, you know, earthy, the green, and then you get those orange flowers, like it's a passionate color. It's, you know, like we said, energy and just something good and positive. And yet look at these teenagers and how they're behaving and how, you know, maybe at the time they were going too far, you know, and it's like Hanna-Barbera was like, no, just reel it back in a little bit, you know? It's not like there's no merit to what you're trying to do, but like do it in this controlled manner. I don't know. That's just my opinion. And I do tend to read too much into a lot of things, I'm sure. But I like to think of that when I look at the Mystery Machine. And like, I think it was a deliberate kind of thing, even if it was subconsciously deliberate. Like I can imagine Bob Singer at that time and the kind of person that he might have been, and him being like, well, what would look cool that will appeal to the kids, but how can we still make it good for them and wholesome?
Yeah.
And we have Scooby and the Mystery Machine. I don't know, just Just my thoughts on that.
No, that definitely makes sense. I think because also, like I was saying earlier, with Fred being more clean cut and the color palette supporting it, versus Shaggy being the beatnik, which was even like pre sexual revolution and all that, like you said. I think I'm trying to remember the show the characters were based on. I think it was Dobie Gillis, if I remember correctly, which is a little bit before that. It's more like, I want to say late 50s, early 60s. Haven't watched that show, so I don't remember the exact date. So they show the different types of teenagers, but they don't lean so far into that stereotype with Shaggy, especially because you look at Velma, she's very highly intelligent. Daphne's very well put together, very, tidy, very proper almost in a sense. Not to later iterations that we see her more get like that badass side. So I think that what you're saying definitely makes sense because it's also supported with the colors and the patterns from the actual characters themselves too.
Right.
Hanna-Barbera
Also,
didn't wanna get in trouble.
I think Hanna-Barbera is like so known for their iconic cars. Like there's Doom Buggy, there's the Flintstones, and I think Scooby couldn't have, like, the Mystery Machine couldn't just be like a regular old van. Like I feel like Hanna-Barbera, like they really focus on so many details. And of course, the Mystery Machine had to have this cool paint job. When you look at all the other kind of vehicles, and especially when it appears on Wacky Races, like it just makes total sense to like really get into it and really take the time to design something like that that's so different and unique and interesting.
Well, like one y'all said earlier too, merchandising. They're always going to be thinking about what can we sell as a toy, what can we make money off of. I don't know back in the 60s how much, but I mean nowadays you look and the Mystery Machine is one of the more commonly merchandised pieces of Scooby-Doo. So they would have missed out on a lot of that had they just made it like this plain boring car. They had to make it something iconic. People see it, they want to buy it. It's the Mystery Machine. My room is full of them. It's proof that people see them and spend too much money on them.
They definitely made it iconic. I mean, I think all of us want a Mystery Machine and would not be embarrassed at all to be driving around in one. So,
if anybody gets one, we need to do like a road trip where they go pick up like everybody else and we just like all drive around in it together and have fun.
And talking about like their outfits and their colors, when people do drawings and they switch their outfits, my brain cannot comprehend that. Like I look at it and I'm just like, this is not right. My brain doesn't like it at all. And it's not right. Like Fred shouldn't wear green. It's not his color, it's Shaggy's.
Very true. There's a board game. I think it's the Scooby-Doo the movie game. I don't know if any of you guys have it in your collection, but it works off the first movie, and it part of the gameplay is the idea of the characters like switching souls and like bodies. And so they do that in the board game by the little pieces that they have. It's like the heads separate from the rest of them. So you can put like Shaggy's head on like Fred's body or whatever. And you're right, it is very off-putting to see like their outfit on, Shaggy wearing Fred's outfit. It's just like, no, like what kind of alternate universe nonsense is this? Like, take it away. When you said that the changed outfits, that was the first thing I thought of was that game.
And talking about changing outfits, like we talked a little bit about Shaggy's red shirt. There's Daphne's outfit being pink in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo instead of purple, or her pantsuit in 13 Ghosts. Velma was wearing a sweater vest in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. Like, what are your thoughts on changes like those, Tori?
I mean, I think it works in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I don't mind that as much because they're children. And I feel like when you're a kid, you wear what your parents give you to wear. So I think like it's like the evolution. They get older and they wear those clothes. But when they do like the drastic changes, like, Shaggy in the red shirt, I can't get behind that. I don't mind like in What's New Scooby-Doo, when they kind of updated that for the time period. I thought that looked great. And I remember watching that and thinking like, oh, this looks really good. This looks cool. But for the most part, I do lean towards just their traditional outfits. in the live action movies. It's not my favorite iteration of their clothes, and I do not like when they put Velma in the scandalous leather suit. It's too much. I mean, cinematically, I get why they did it, but I just can't get behind that. Basically, unless they're like in like costumes, like when they get dressed up for like Halloween and things like that, that's acceptable for them to change their clothes. And Pup Named Scooby-Doo. Those are my like exceptions.
Wendy, what are your thoughts on them just changing the clothes?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I don't hate it. I think it's unnecessary, and I think that has been proven over the last 50 years that they keep trying it and they keep going back to the original because it doesn't need updating. Are the updates okay? They're okay as long as they stick to keeping the colors consistent so that we can make that immediate association. Although, like Tori said, I definitely think that Pink Daphne doesn't feel jarring in Pup Named Scooby-Doo. And actually, that's probably one of my favorite outfits that Daphne ever wears, because I like pink better than purple anyway, but I think it's a really cute little outfit. I'm always surprised that if I was going to pick one member of the gang that I would say is like the most dated looking in their original outfit, for some reason, I think Velma. And yet I feel like Velma is the only one who really doesn't get an outfit update like almost ever. You know, I'm thinking of Zombie Island and Daphne's in this totally different suit. And then there's Velma, you know, standing up on the stool in the bookstore and she's just wearing her same outfit, which is fine, you know, but I'm just like, you know, Freddy's got a different outfit. Okay, Shaggy's pretty much in the same thing, but it's just weird that they don't change it up a little bit. I'm surprised. I kind of wish that they would have. If you're going to change one, like commit to it and do all of them. Unpopular opinion with this crowd, apparently. I don't mind red shirt Shaggy. However, I will say that it's because I feel like red shirt Shaggy is kind of like Scrappy's evolution in the same universe where Shaggy is wearing the red shirt, in that Scrappy goes from being a puppy to being more mature. Like when we see him in Boo Brothers and Reluctant Werewolf, any of those late 80s movies, Scrappy's very responsible and dependable and, you know, more mature and grown up. And I almost feel like for me, whenever I see red shirt Shaggy, he's kind of in that same setting. So I'm like, to me, I'm like, well, that's just more mature Shaggy. Because I feel like he does kind of act like he's still Shaggy, of course. They did a great job keeping him the same character. But again, Velma's gone, Fred is gone, Daphne's gone. Somebody like they need to sort of like be in charge and be mature. Shaggy's a gym teacher in Ghoul School. Like he has to have a level of maturity and responsibility about him. And I wonder if perhaps that was what drove the color change, was to just show like a more mature, slightly older Shaggy, that it's the same outfit, the style is the same, but they've just changed the color of it. Obviously, I also do not associate those colors with Shaggy. If I see somebody wearing that, I'm not automatically thinking, oh, Shaggy in later iterations. No. Brown pants, green shirt, forever is Shaggy. But I can appreciate the change with the red and the blue, but simply because I'm looking at it from that perspective of the dynamic in the character grouping has changed and it's forced Shaggy to change roles a little bit. And so to see like a slight wardrobe update, I'd actually rather the color, like I know I've contradicting myself. I've said how it's important to like keep the colors consistent, but I almost feel like Shaggy is the exception for me, strictly because of those late 80s movies, because I appreciate that Shaggy is now playing a different role in that group dynamic, and I'd actually rather the color change than them like put him in a suit jacket or give him like a polo shirt or something, you know, and like skinny jeans. I'd actually rather keep clothing the same, but just change the color of it. For me, it's I don't have a problem with it.
We saw Shaggy in skinny jeans and it didn't go well, so we don't need to see that again. Leah, what are your thoughts on them just completely changing the clothes?
A kind of similar consensus with everybody. I think the big important thing is the colors. I'm kind of like with you guys that I don't care for red shirt Shaggy. It's just not the same. I remember as a kid, it was like, nope, that's wrong. That feels weird. But I also don't like it when things change in general. So that just tracks well with me. I will say I think they probably changed it at least partially because I think with the 80s series in particular, they wanted to give it a very 80s look, almost like this isn't your mom's Scooby-Doo, you know? I don't know. That's the best way I can explain it. Like Daphne's pantsuit in Ghoul School, 13 Ghosts, mixing up my words here. Very, very 80s. One of her more dated outfits. Still a cute outfit, but even her hairstyle in that one, it's like she's almost like a completely different character, just the way she looks. And so I think they're like, well, you know, a different color shirt and jeans is probably more 80s looking, whereas we see, you know, that shade of green, the brown, we're thinking very earthy, hippie, corduroy pants. Nobody's wearing corduroy pants in the 80s, you know what I mean? I think also one of y'all pointed out that, you know, the changes in a pup named Scooby-Doo are kind of like okay almost, and I definitely agree there. I think it's because we're seeing them as kids, and we all know that teenagers aren't going to dress the same way that they did when they were children. You know, we have things that we like as kids, and sometimes, like my love of Scooby, it doesn't go away. But then there's other things that's like, yeah, I can't believe I dressed like that as a kid or something. So canonically, it would make sense that they would dress a little differently when they were children. I will say Daphne in the pink definitely makes sense. I mean, most little girls love to wear pink. So it makes sense that, you know, she was more all about the pink when she was little. And then as she got older, it was like, let's bring some other colors in. You know, she kept pink tights, but now she's got purple, she's got green. She's trying to be very fashionable rather than just all one color. Also, as for why they didn't update Velma's outfit, my guess is that Velma's kind of meant to be probably one of the more out of style members of the group. You know, Freddie and Daphne, very in style. Shaggy, kind of, especially with the 60s look. I think the thing about Velma's outfit is it probably wasn't particularly in style back in the 60s. It's very almost like, I hate to use the word frumpy because I think Velma pulls it off, but that's like the closest word I can think of. It's like the librarian outfit, or like one of y'all said when she's selling the books, the book lady outfit. And so I think they don't change it because it's like, well, it was out of style back then. It's out of style now. Let's leave well enough alone. Whereas the other characters, it's like, okay, they were in style, but we want to update it to where they're in style to today's viewer. That's my guess. I don't know if that's what they were thinking, but that would make sense to me.
It does make sense. And with Daphne's outfit being pink, I don't like pink. I definitely like purple is my favorite color, so I would have stuck with purple. But the pink doesn't bother me because, like you guys said, pink I feel like is more of a kid color. Like girls are probably going to want to wear pink more than any other color. So yeah, it doesn't bother me. I don't know that any of that necessarily bothers me. I guess in a way I should be happy that they changed their outfits to work with Scrappy, because then I don't think of Scrappy when I think of their normal outfits.
That's true.
Sorry, Wendy. So let's give our final thoughts. And what is your favorite style for the gang? Leah?
Definitely classic. Where Are You? I love seeing like the different iterations they do within Where Are You as well. Like, of course, you know, we have their winter outfits. Everybody loves those. The sleepwear is just funny to look at when they've got their sleep caps. I think there's an episode Scooby has like pajamas and slippers. I always love the classic stuff. So for me, going back to that, it's like comforting. It's like, okay, there's Fred in his outfit, there's Daphne in her outfit. It doesn't change. It's very timeless, very classic, and it's just very comforting to me. I remember I was at the thrift store one time and I was thrilled when I found a pair of high heels that look to me almost exactly like Daphne's. Like they're that periwinkle color. They just don't have like the little pointy things on the top. But I was so happy because I was like, yes, this is perfect for a Daphne cosplay. And just seeing them made me so happy, like seeing this piece of, Scooby-Doo in real life. And it wasn't marketed as Scooby-Doo and it wasn't a costume. The shoes were uncomfortable, but you bet your butt I bought them. And I wore them for my Daphne cosplay. And hopefully I'll do that soon for Halloween. I wanted to do it last year, but I didn't get my butt in gear and getting a costume in time. So we'll see for this year. But yeah, Where Are You is definitely my favorite style, hands down.
Wendy, final thoughts, and what is your favorite style?
Yeah, definitely Where Are You and the Scooby-Doo show, where it's the same. Nothing's ever gonna beat the classics. I can think of things that I like about every outfit iteration, even Daphne in the live actions. I mean, I don't think it's a very Daphne wardrobe, personally, but I love that wardrobe. I would wear all of that. Absolutely. Those purple go-go boots. Yeah, I would go to the grocery store in those, like, clearly. Have no trouble doing that at all. My final thought is, because obviously I grew up loving both Daphne and Velma, and I'm a very traditional kind of girl, and I do not lean towards like feminist tendencies. However, what I love maybe the most about the girls in Scooby is that they are kind of like a bridge between the ultra feminine girl and the practical, I'm not going to take your crap. They do everything in a very respectable, polite way. And the designers gave them like this beautiful outfit for each of them that is very much feminine in both instances. Obviously, Daphne's is more like the traditional type feminine. Velma's is more like Leah said, like it's got that librarian kind of thing where it's a little bit more conservative, but it's still fashionable and it's still feminine. And yet we see Velma and Daphne traipsing through the mud. We see them climbing up hills. We see them like kicking monster butt. You know what I mean? We see that all the time. And I love that they made those characters like the ultimate in girl power. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're not too far the extreme one way or the other. They're definitely someone that you could look up to and aspire to be like. And I feel like their outfits were the perfect choice for them and show that you can be a badass and you can look good while doing it. Okay. You don't have to choose. You can be both of those things. And Daphne and Velma, classic series. That's what they do.
Tori, your final thoughts, and what is your favorite style for the gang?
I think we probably will all agree our favorite is just the iconic classic, Where Are You? I will say growing up, I always wanted to be a Daphne, and I've turned out to be a Velma. But I love turtlenecks, and I'm not ashamed to say it, and I can't see without my glasses, and that's just how I was born. But I do think Velma gets a lot of hate for being frumpy, but you know what? If you put that outfit on today, you would look cute. I'm sorry, you would. You would look cute in a skirt and a turtleneck. And some might even say you'd look sexy. So there you go. Velma doesn't get enough appreciation for her outfits. And then just kind of like I mentioned, I adore seeing the gang in costumes. I don't know what it is. When it was in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, Party Like It's 1899, and then Scroogey-Doo, seeing them in the Victorian clothing, it was just, I love it. I love it. And even like a Nutcracker Scoob, when they're dressed up, there's something. Oh, and the Halloween episode too, when they're in their Halloween costumes in the classic one. I love them in costume, but that's about as much as I want them to change. When I think of my Scooby-Doo, I think of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? It's iconic for a reason. I think when you're seeing a cosplay, that's what you're seeing. And if it works, it works.
Costumes are a whole different panel, so we'll be getting into that eventually. I definitely agree the Where Are You style is the best. It's iconic. You can't get any better than that. I mean, it's awesome. And yeah, anybody that puts on Velma's outfit now, everybody's going to be so excited that Velma's walking around. So
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. I also definitely love that they stick to the same colors, the outfits, you know, they don't change their outfit in each episode. They're wearing the same thing. Is it boring? No, it's awesome because you know who they are. Their outfits are iconic, just like they are, just like the Mystery Machine is. And without all of that, it would be a totally different show. It would be really weird to see them changing their outfits for every episode. Yeah. So I like the gangs just the way they are. Let's just keep them like that. Like this. Where Are You style. We can go back to that for the next series and everybody will be happy.
Sounds good to me.
So we're going to wrap things up. Before we do, let everyone know where they can find you on social media. And Tori, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you can find me at Tori, Tore, Scooby Fan on Twitter. I do have a YouTube, but I'm not very active. So Twitter is where you will find me.
Wendy?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Wendy Loves Jesus. My blog is wendylovesjesus.wordpress.com. And over on Instagram, I'm at WendyBRYDGE.
Leah?
I'm on Instagram. It's going to be at my Scooby Space. I haven't been posting as much as I would like regularly because I have a 2-month-old son, but fingers crossed, I'm trying to get back into the swing of posting things and doing more content because I miss it. And I'm still over here collecting Scooby, still buying stuff. Nothing's changed there. So if you want to see bits of my collection, come follow me.
And you can find all my links on ScoobyAddicts.com. Thank you for joining us for another Scooby panel. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Scooby-Doo of Roblox, Tage, and Christopher Michael Watts. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE, Scooby collector Leah from My Scooby Space, and Scooby fan Tori. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms, or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as @ScoobyPanel. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby panel.